Hi, hope you're doing well. I'm going to tell you about a very sad story. It's called Kids for Cash. It happens in Pennsylvania. And from 2003 to 2008, these two judges that you see in the front were selling kids. Basically, they linked up with a for-profit prison, and their deal was you send kids from your court to us and we'll pay you a kickback because the prisons made a lot of money if they had high occupancy. And so they got the kids who did anything. You could be jaywalking and they would send you off to prison. Now these kids naturally were from low income, one parent homes or maybe foster kids, and so they didn't have anyone to really stand up for them, and so they just would be shuffled off from the court to this prison. Oftentimes they wouldn't even get a hearing. They would just have the allegations read and the judge would make a decision, and they would go off to this for-profit prison where they would spend varied amount of times. And how many kids did they get? Well, they got, let me see, how many kids were there? I forgot now. I was thinking about that. Well, I'll get to that. I can't see it right now on my. The courts have finally said these two judges, we're not even going to call them judges, they're just crooks and slavers. These are the same thing as people who were selling people into slavery for money. And the court ordered them to pay $200 million to the people that they victimized. 100 million was for compensatory damages and 100 million was for punitive damages. Now these guys are both in their 70s. One was sentenced to I think 20 years in jail, the other to 17, which really isn't much. One is still in jail. The other one was let out a few years ago because of COVID. Now you can imagine that. He was in Kentucky prison and they said, well, there's COVID, why don't we let you out? Well, you know, there are a whole bunch of people in there who are minorities who have COVID risks, and they were not let out. So why was this judge let out when he had done this cruel thing to all of these kids for so many years and really had no conscience about it and really had no regrets? If he hadn't been caught, he still would have been doing it. Well, he stopped doing it in 2008 because he was caught. 2009, this lawsuit was initiated. It has just been settled all these years. Now you can imagine these kids are old. They have had a record. They've probably not been able to go to schools. They've probably had a lot of prejudice against them, and plus they're minority students anyway, and they came from a poor background, and they came from a dysfunctional home. I mean, how many more things can they have? Some of the kids have even died from suicide or drugs, and that would be expected when you have that sort of upbringing. Well, they said most of the kids won't even get anything because these guys are old. They've been in prison for a while. They've probably hid all their assets. They didn't have anyone really doing all of the legwork needed. So those assets are hidden and gone. And really they should have got the state in there too, because the state hired and kept these judges. They should have seen what was going on. Someone should have been reviewing their judge records to see that the kids didn't even have time to put up a defense. They should have interviewed the kids to see what was going on, and because they lacked the supervisory duties they had over these judges, and it was a for-profit prison, so that's a huge chance that there's going to be a problem. The state was also liable, and they should have also had the state in there so that they could cover the charges for these kids. And probably the kids don't even know about this case. They don't even know what's going on, probably. Maybe they do. So these guys accepted, it said here, 2.8 million in illegal payments from the builder and co-owner of the for-profit prisons. And in turn, they guaranteed the owner large numbers of kids would be sent to the prisons on a regular basis. And that was called the Pennsylvania Child Care, and another facility called the Western Pennsylvania Child Care. Care was the last thing they got. Care was the last thing they got. Never got care. The children were as young as 8. So you can imagine a poor 8-year-old being drugged in there. And of course he was molested. Probably these guys are pedophiles too. But, it didn't mention that. But why would you send a kid 8 to prison? And most of them were first-time offenders. And their charges were petty theft, jaywalking, truancy, smoking on school grounds, and other minor infractions. The judge often ordered the children to be immediately shackled, handcuffed, and taken away, without giving them a chance to put up a defense or even say goodbye to their families. They abandoned their oaths as judge, and they breached the public trust. We really trust judges, and these guys did everything but take care of the kids that they were entrusted with. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court threw out some 4,000 juvenile convictions involving more than 2,300 kids after the scheme was uncovered. So you have to check these judges. Just because they went to law school and just because they have run for judge or have been appointed judge, it doesn't mean they're good judges. You have to really, really scrutinize people that you put into your county judge positions. They are positions of trust, and one day you may have to face these guys. One of the guys, the guy that did not get released, is due to be released in 2035, and I said the other one has already been released because of COVID. Let me see what else it says here. And then they did get some kids to testify about how the judges ruined their lives, about how they didn't get a chance to have a future because they had been convicted of crimes for their minor offenses. And then, of course, some of them have died. So they figured out the kids were worth a base rate of $1,000 for each day that they spent in wrongful detention. And then they adjusted that amount dependent on the crime that they were charged with. But they don't even know if they did the crime or what was going on because they didn't get a defense. They shouldn't have adjusted the rate at all. That's crazy. So that's what happened in Pennsylvania, and we do need people to help kids everywhere, because there are always people who are going to abuse the kids, in any way they can. And if no one's helping the kids aren't able to help themselves, and then it becomes, one of these crazy child abuse cases. Okay, so I hope everything's going well for you. Take care, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.